So you don't have to worry, there are no spoilers anywhere in this video. Hey everyone, as always Jarek here, and welcome to one of the most anticipated games in a long time. Right away I need to state what platform I'm playing this on because CD Projekt Red has gotten into a little bit of trouble. Apparently the PS4 and Xbox One versions of the game are really bad. But CD Projekt Red just said not long ago that those versions are running better than expected. This is unfortunate for people playing on last-gen consoles, as this is just not a good version to play. With that said, I'm playing this on PC, and I need to state my specs. My specs are an AMD 3700X, a 2TB NVMe drive, 32GB of DDR4 RAM at 3600MHz, and an RTX 3080. This is not me flexing or showing off, this is important to talk about when it comes to Cyberpunk because as the title implies, this game is really hard on your system. I've also been pretty lucky and actually not seen that many bugs. Don't get me wrong, I've come across a few of them, but looking at the internet, it would have me believe that there'd be bugs every 5 feet, and that's not really been my case. My theory is that the bugs are a lot more common on console or on lower spec PCs, or maybe I'm just really lucky. Let's start right away with the graphics. I think they actually undersold the graphics in this game, if that's possible. This is one fantastic and beautiful game. And if you're playing this on PC, you have a ton of options to sift through and mess with. Again, I haven't had this experience since Crysis 1 in 2007, messing with every little thing just to see what frame rate I can get or how good the game looks. For a PC gamer that likes tinkering, this is like a wet dream come true. It even does the classic Crysis thing of having a few extra options that go above Ultra to Psycho. For the record, the footage you are seeing is with all the settings set to Ultra, but not the few that you can set to Psycho. I should also point out that I'm playing this game at 1440p, not 1080p. If you're unaware, 1440p is the in-between of 1080p and 4K. It's about 1.7 times larger than 1080p and takes a lot more out of your computer. I'll show you how much bigger 1440p is. What you're seeing right now is the game at 1440p. Here is this game running in 1920 by 1080. This is the full 1920 by 1080 on my screen. The empty space is how much bigger 1440p is. This is important to mention because at 1080p, I can run this game over 60 FPS absolutely no problem. But at 1440p, I find myself running averages in around the 50s. When things get really strenuous, the game can drop down to the 40s, and when things are running perfectly fine, they'll be well over 60. This is also where I need to point out that I'm taking advantage of DLSS and using ray tracing, which puts extra strain on my computer. Let's start with DLSS. This actually helps your frames, and it's an amazing piece of tech. To give you a very short, too long didn't read description, I would recommend you watch a full video on what DLSS really is to get the proper explanation. But to explain it in short, your GPU is basically upscaling the image and then downscaling it to your native resolution. Again, this is a very bad explanation of what is actually happening here, but effectively this is smoothing out your image and making it look as if it was running at 4K, but smaller. All those jagged edges are gone. The game just looks a lot clearer. Like, it's great. It really helps. Ray tracing, on the other hand, majorly tanks your frames. But there's a reason for it. This is all about lighting. I won't go into the technical details of how it does what it does, but the end result is that lighting looks a lot more natural. Corners and rooms and underneath tables are going to be a lot more naturally lit rather than just one flat shadow. Ray tracing is always going to make your game look better, but there's one thing in this game that really stood out when it came to the ray tracing, and that is the reflections. This is a monumental difference with this turned on and off. The game just looks downright gorgeous with all the settings turned on. But again, you're gonna need one beast of a PC to run it. It is very heavy on your hardware. You really notice frame drops with ray tracing on when you go into clubs. There's a lot of neon lights everywhere, there's a lot of reflections. This can really hit your frame rate. The most extreme example I saw was my frames going down to 35 in one of these clubs. That's exceptionally rare. Again, my averages were in the 50s, but it can happen with ray tracing turned on. This is a game that feels like it was future-proofed more than anything else, but it's worth it. This game looks really damn good. Next, we'll move on to the story. Again, no spoilers, you don't need to worry. I'm more interested in explaining the presentation of the story rather than the story itself. It's impossible to really explain anything going on without spoiling things, so I just won't. What I will say is that the presentation is fantastic, what you should expect from CD Projekt Red. The voice actors, the motion capture, the characters you will be involved in, the writing, everything is top notch in this regard.
That'd be me.
Thought you could blackmail me, fucker? Set conditions?
You will become invested in the story and atmosphere and characters of Cyberpunk 2077. This is a game that you can certainly lose yourself in if that's your sort of thing. Can I just take a moment to state how good this looks?
I got a question. When do we get to the real reason we're all here?
Okay, sorry, I'll stop talking about the graphics. It just looks so good. Anyway, yeah, if you cared about the story, this is going to keep you happy. There's even 3 different branches you can choose from right at the beginning of the game. You have the nomad, living out the desert, the street kid, doing exactly what you'd think, kind of growing up in the ghetto more or less, or you can be a corporate shill. Tons of different voice lines you can choose from, again, lots of different characters. If story is your thing, once again, you will be happy. Now let's move on to the gameplay. Now, this channel is mostly based on first-person shooters, but this is where I need to remind people that this game is an RPG first and a shooter second. But still, fully knowing that, I kind of wanted to look at how good the shooting itself would be in the game. It left me curious, although I didn't have high expectations. You see, again, this is first and foremost an RPG. The focus is creating a character that does what you want it to do. If you want to put all of your stats into hacking, or all of your stats into stealth, or all of your stats into gunplay, you can do those things. I find that there are 2 different types of players when it comes to video games. There are types of players that want to create a character in-game, to get invested and lost in this game, to make the character better. And then there are types of players that want to be that character, types of players that want to improve as a player, more of an execution test rather than an RPG. And the extremes can have some pretty weird views of each other. For example, if you're someone that just likes execution in games, you might look at the RPG mechanics and go, this is dumb stuff in the menus, I just want to get these stats out of the way, just let me play the game. But if you're into more RPGs, you may even look at competitive games as sort of in concept being toxic as a whole. Both these viewpoints are extreme viewpoints that people don't usually fall under, by the way. I'm just making an example. People usually are somewhere in between. Me, myself, I'm more of an execution type player. When I play a shooter, I want to be controlling that character. I want it to be all my skill. I don't really care about skill trees or becoming a better character in game. I want it to be me, so that's the side I lay on. I'm fully aware of what Cyberpunk is, by the way. Again, this is an RPG more than anything else, so no, I'm not saying Cyberpunk is bad because of this, by any means. I felt like I had to clarify because this game had so much hype around the game that people might not exactly even know what it is. They might just know that it's a big game coming out and it has some guns, so let's play it. Believe me, those people do actually exist. With that said though, let's look at how good the guns in this game actually are. Well, they're kind of mediocre, to be honest. I didn't expect a whole lot coming into the gunplay for Cyberpunk, and it did pretty much the bare minimum, exactly what you would expect. Movement feels fine, aiming down sights feels fine. The guns don't necessarily feel the most responsive or have the most impact when you shoot at things, but they're not terrible, so to say. I guess what I'm trying to say is that the gunplay is definitely not the selling point of the game. Melee fares a little bit better. Melee combat does feel pretty fun. In a way, it reminds me of Killing Floor 2's melee combat. But there is one mechanic in this game that I absolutely hate. That mechanic is the ability to dodge if you double tap left and right. On a controller, this shouldn't be much of an issue, I can assume. I've never actually played it on a controller, but I can say on a keyboard, this is incredibly annoying. It's way too easy to accidentally do this. Why would this be a problem? Well, what if you're trying to inch around cover? You double tap right and magically you've lunged yourself in front of all the enemies. Or what if you're standing near a cliff? Oops, you accidentally just lunged yourself off the cliff to your death. I've done both these things, it's pretty easy. To make things worse, you cannot turn off this mechanic in-game. To turn it off, you have to edit an XML file. This is really irritating. It's certainly not bad enough to ruin the game or even come close by any means, but it's something that will just be very, very annoying. Anyway, Cyberpunk is a huge game, and there is a lot to talk about, so I've not even come close to really explaining what this game can really be. That said, this is what I wanted to talk about, so it might be a little bit shorter of a video than usual. If you were playing on a high-spec PC, or I presume a PS5 or the new Xbox console, I'm not actually sure about next-gen consoles, but I can confirm if you were playing on PC, this game is amazing graphically. It's a good RPG if RPG mechanics are what you want. The story is easy to get yourself completely lost in. The combat is, in my opinion, a little bit lacking, but that's also because the combat doesn't do exactly what I wanted out of combat. Again, if you're someone that wants to build your character up, you will get more satisfaction into putting a few points into your assault rifle category and then doing a bit more damage with your assault rifle and faster reload and less recoil. That is not quite my thing. I personally want to get better myself, not put points into a character. I've been over this. You should understand what I mean by that now. The point of this video is twofold. It was to gush about how good the graphics are and also explain who this game is really for. Again, it's an RPG first and foremost, a shooter second. If you're into first-person shooters and only into first-person shooters, this game might not be your thing. But that about sums up everything I wanted to say. Thank all of you that joined me over on Twitch while I was streaming this game. My Twitch is twitch.tv/JarekTheGamingDragon. If you subscribe, you get to see my videos ahead of time. I would also like to clarify that I did not benchmark this game while I was streaming, I did all that off stream. Thank all of you guys for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.